Fundamentally, they have to believe in the film. They have to believe in the idea. It would be, I think, personally, I think it will be impossible to work on something that I don't personally believe in. If I'm not its biggest champion, then I can't communicate to ask other people to be its champion.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Natter with Nilan. Today, I'm joined by the independent film and theatre producer, Natalie Chan. And here she is now. Natalie, welcome to my channel. Thank you very much for your time. How are you? How have you been? It's been a crazy time recently. It's been quite tough and challenging for a lot of people, but how have things been for you?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me. I'm a little bit nervous, but also quite excited to kind of like talk to you. Yeah, I've been okay. Like it's been quite up and down. Like, I guess the first half of the pandemic, I found myself unemployed, so that was quite challenging. I kind of like I'd applied for loads of emergency funding, and then luckily some were successful, and then this half I had been working in a new role in an arts organization, which is great, but working, and I'm not complaining, but working from home and like not seeing my colleagues is really challenging, and also very challenging not seeing friends and family anyway. So yeah, but like most people, we just kind of like think of every small thing as an achievement and to get through it. Yeah.
Are you feeling a bit better now as opposed to the start of the pandemic?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure, because I obviously actually, like today, the day we're recording this is the day where I think we in the theatre industry we had like kind of the final performances before everything kind of like I think it was announced there was a shutdown on the 15th of March. Like, can't remember, but like it was like a couple of days. So, and the fact that a year later we're still in the same position it takes kind of like a lot of courage to kind of like, for myself and people I care about, to keep going. But yeah, we're okay, I guess. Like
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. I can't believe it actually has been a year. Yeah, if you had said this time last year, this is not going to be over for a year, I don't think many people would have sort of just allowed it to happen. I suppose I think there would have been a bit more resistance, but yeah, I mean, it looks like we're on the right path, so I'm just hopeful that we can continue. I don't even watch the news anymore, because I'm just like, at some point it's just gonna be obvious.
Someone will tell you
that, yeah,
right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I want to take it back to the start. So, you know, you're a independent film and theatre producer. How did you get started in the industry?
Oh, really good question. Yeah, I guess I found out that I'm interested in like theatre and film through university. So I'm from Hong Kong originally, and when I came over to study, I could speak English. It was absolutely fine. But I think it's just that when you know, like, you understand every word in an email, like you understand kind of like how to do your assignments and everything. But there's just something in that house party when everyone got really drunk and you just didn't understand what anybody was saying. I found it quite hard to make friends. Right. So I joined the university's dance society and the drama society, where kind of like, because there was a bit more like, it was like more using body language, and kind of like there was just some chemistry in there that's beyond language that I found a kind of a community. So I decided that I wanted to be a producer, basically. So basically, like all of our kind of friendship group, etc., wanted to take a theatre performance to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in the summer. So that's kind of like the world's largest festival, but it's kind of one of those festivals where you pay to play. So anyone who can afford to hire a space, can afford to pay for accommodation, pay for travel, gets to perform there. And kind of like, you kind of pay that price hoping it'll get picked up by the industry, by kind of more established producer, and it'll take it further, a bit like kind of Fleabag. So what I did was, like, I used the university's intranet system. I found the vice chancellor's direct email. I sent him an email. I don't know what, I don't know where the courage came from, but I was like, maybe you should help support us, because like finance shouldn't be a barrier, and you should support this student. To my complete surprise, they said yes. They yeah, I know. So I accidentally became the producer, and that was a very, very magical moment. And I realized I wanted to continue to do this. Yeah, so when I graduated, I was like a lot of people, I was hustling a couple of jobs. So I was working as a box office assistant in a venue in Notting Hill Gate, and then I was also I got a 3-day-a-week assistant producer job at a place called Theatre 503, which is, they're fantastic, and they're in Clapham. So, and then kind of gradually I've jumped through several fixed term contract jobs, and then also started producing some of my work on the side. And yeah, I guess it's also kind of important to acknowledge that because I think it's really important so that people see the full picture. I come from a rather privileged family, so basically like my family's like, if I don't work, if I don't earn any income, my family could pay my rent. I wouldn't be in any problems at all. And I think obviously I'm aware that's not the position that many people are in, but I think it's important to acknowledge that when you ask someone how they started out. I think it's,
of course, absolutely.
Like, yeah, so basically obviously I did work for free a lot as well, and I was obviously, with that support, I knew that I could do that, and I kind of just gradually worked my way into the industry. So that's what I did.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's a great story. It sounds like you found your way, and you went with it, and you pursued your passion, which is amazing, and it's very inspirational. The role of the producer is always something that I find can be like shrouded in mystery. Like, I think at the start of people's careers, knowing exactly what a producer does can be a bit sort of tricky. How would you define what it is that you do, or what it is that you bring to a project?
I think I'm really good at asking the question, what are the gaps in your project, or what are the gaps within your idea? What is that you need between where it's currently at to where you want it to get to, and to kind of assess whether I'm the right person with the right skills for that writer, for that project. Yeah, and definitely there are so many sort of like kind of like different definitions of a producer, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I think it's really, I would kind of encourage anyone listening, kind of be really clear whether you're, I think the first thing to define is whether you're looking for like a risk-taking producer with you, or you're looking to kind of like employ, just outright hire someone like more like a general manager, more like kind of type person. So if you're, I guess, because traditionally a lot of producers do take the risk, and there are people who call themselves producers who just put in money into a film and helped make, and they are absolutely a producer. But there are also people who actually do the work. So I think just be really clear, kind of like, if you're approaching a producer, knowing that, do you have a budget? If you don't, then be honest, be upfront. You're looking for someone to take the risk on that journey with you. My strengths are definitely in kind of like managing the budgets. I think I write an okay email and funding application, but I'm a little bit weaker on kind of script development, kind of like reading scripts, and kind of, so that's why I'm also kind of looking for if there is someone I will co-produce with. So that's why sometimes you also see producers work in pairs, because there are so many skill sets that one needs.
Yeah, I think the role of the producer is one that's so important. I almost look at them as a sort of guardian, like they are there to take care of the project from the inception till the very end. They bring crew on board, they keep the script on track, they're brave enough to tell the writer or the director when something isn't working, or that we can't get this, which is not an easy thing to do. They're there throughout all the stages of production. They're there to resolve the issues that come up, which there will always be issues, and they're there to communicate. And then once the film is done, you know, they've got to see it through
Finalize the
post-production,
accounts.
and then and marketing, which is a whole other thing. They've got to get it advertised, they've got to get it sold, they've got to get it shown everywhere. So yeah, I think the skills that you need to be a producer, I think you've touched on. So you need to be logistical, you need to have excellent organizational skills, communication skills. You need to be a sort of problem solver, but also a hub of encouragement, because I think the writers, the directors, they're always going to need that sense of, you need to keep going, you need to keep, you know, pushing to bring out the story that you're trying to tell. And I always think having somebody with a logical mindset is so important, because sometimes you can get so bogged down in the creativity, or you can just love a certain scene or a certain bit of dialogue. In actual fact, that might be stopping the story from coming to fruition, or it might just be making it worse, or it might just not necessarily be needed. And the producer feels like the one that will sort of say that to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also someone who has the ability to translate kind of the writer and director's vision onto, whether it's a funding application, translate it into a meeting to a financier. I think the list goes on, but definitely, I think fundamentally they have to believe in the film, they have to believe in the idea. It would be, I think personally, I think it'll be impossible to work on something that I don't personally believe in. If I'm not its biggest champion, then I can't communicate to ask other people to be its champion. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I think producers are great, and I think they do a wonderful job. And I personally, I don't think producers get enough credit. So yeah, big up all the producers out there, including yourself. Along with producing independently, you also produce with a production company called The Ace Effect. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about what they do and how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to kind of give a bit of context, my background is mainly in theatre. I've worked in theatre for about 2 years, and it was kind of in the start of 2020. It was like a new year, and I was like, this is the year I wanted to venture out. And I guess like, but then at the time I kind of like I've reached out to people on Facebook, on social media, and on various platforms, and I was to a lot of people, I was like, I'm an experienced theatre producer, but I'm kind of interested in film. And I think The Ace Effect was the only people that took a risk on me and asked me to come on board. And like kind of, I originally was like, I'm very happy to be a production assistant on set to help kind of like to learn a little bit. I'm just curious. I had a free weekend. So I met them on kind of like social media, and that's how I met them. And then it was after our first meeting, I realized they didn't have a budget. They didn't like have any kind of like, it was like a self-funded project. And maybe I was a bit naive when I joined on board. I like saw their website, it looks quite professional. But then instead of like kind of like, and then and obviously I was quite determined to help them. I saw their passion. So I helped them write a funding application to a place called the Croydon Council. And we got the money. So and I kind of like then helped out with a lot of logistics of actually making the film happen. So I'm really, really grateful that they took a risk on me, and hopefully if they're listening, they'll know that that risk paid off. So our relationship carried on kind of like since then. So we kind of worked together as a collective. But they love horror films. So it's led by two people called Asad and Rakesh, and they're absolutely brilliant. And like I kind of also realized there are voices that I want to amplify that not necessarily with them, or not necessarily is their style. So I now kind of, I'm venturing out. I still produce with them, but I also kind of venture out to see if there's appetite to create my own work. And we are currently just kind of a collective of very passionate filmmakers kind of working together. We all kind of help out on each other's kind of scripts as a crew member to make things happen. We all scrabble whatever resources we can get together. And everyone has a day job somewhere else, like kind of either within the film industry or not within. I think it's quite important to highlight that everyone is hustling. That's kind of like to not over glamorize the industry.
Yeah, it's a reality of the situation. I think a lot of people have to sort of conduct that balancing act, which is difficult. It's, I think a lot of us talk in a, maybe not a complaining way, but in a oh god, this is quite difficult. But there are days where it can sort of feel, I'd love to just concentrate on, what I want to be doing. But like for me, I try and use it. I try and use sort of my day job to help motivate me in my creative endeavors. Sometimes it can hinder, sometimes it can sort of get in the way, but I always just think use it. I always think try and it helps that I'm working in the same industry, because sometimes there are direct parallels. So someone who I meet in my day job, I can send them a script that I wrote, or I can talk about this and I talk about that. And so sometimes there are some really lucky sort of connections like that, but most of the time I use it for motivation. Like, I'm learning all this stuff, which is great, and I'm meeting all these people, which is great, but I have to get into the mindset of how do I use that to help me, and how do I use that to sort of guide me towards where I want to be in a creative sense as a writer and as a director. And you mentioned obviously that you started out as a producer in theatre, and then you sort of moved in towards film. Can you talk about the differences between producing for theatre and producing for film?
There is a lack of kind of a philanthropic and charitable understanding and empathy towards short filmmakers, and that's currently lacking, I think. And the theatre industry, I think when I was in it, and I'm still in it, I didn't realize how lucky we are to have kind of this understanding from so many charities. That so basically I would kind of, it's a parallel, like kind of a small fringe theatre production playing at a 60-seater venue, for example, above a pub. I would parallel that to a short film, because so for example, if you play to 60 people a night, you can only sell 60 tickets, but actually the costs of like how many actors you have, kind of paying the writer, paying the director, is not the scale of the difference of paying for how many actors you need for a West End production that can sell 6,000 seats. Obviously there is a difference in the cost of making it, but it's not, the cost of difference isn't that large, but kind of how much income you get is massive. And for these small productions, people starting out, people often rely on things like applying to kind of charitable money from various trusts and foundations, the Arts Council England, and generous donations from people to make it happen. And it's actually exactly the same as short films. You need that springboard before someone is able to make a feature film who can sell hopefully some tickets and kind of like make a return on the investment. Like, you need that like phase where your project is definitely not making any money, it's definitely making a loss, and you need that kind of someone to fill that gap. And there is, I think, so yeah, there aren't that much of an understanding that obviously there are still really brilliant funders like the BFI, Film 4, but I think from kind of the wider charitable trust and foundations kind of organizations that I've come across, there is really a lack of kind of empathy that short filmmakers, kind of people starting out, also need that same support. They also need these seed commissions. They also need this seed funding to help them develop some work. Because in the theatre industry, we have kind of like, I can't remember how many organizations, but a large number of organizations are the so-called Arts Council England national portfolio organisations. So these companies are regularly funded every 4 years by the Arts Council. They get a regular grant, so their staff are secure, like they get a salary, etc. And they will often have time and money to give to artists. They'll often have these call out of like, I don't know, £1,000, a small kind of grant for you to test, artists can apply for to test something out. And when I was working in theatre, I thought, oh, they're so little and they're so competitive. But yeah, I definitely feel that there isn't enough of these seed funding opportunities within short film. So that's the difference I'm feeling.
Fair enough. So I think we should tell the audience sort of how we met.
Yeah, sure.
I think the first time we met was when you contacted the BFI and BFI Network specifically, because you wanted to organise and put on some webinars, a group of webinars that were particularly focused on how filmmakers can raise finance for their projects. You not only arranged it and put it on and got all the guests involved and everything to do with that, but you also hosted it. I thought, and by the way, you did a fantastic job with it. It was massively popular, and I think the BFI Network audience got a lot out of it. Like, I can tell you from the team's point of view, we were really, really happy with it. And yeah, it was a massive success. So first and foremost, thank you very much for doing that.
Thanks.
And yeah, I wanted to ask you, how did you find the whole experience, particularly hosting it?
Oh, yeah, no, I was very nervous. I think in particular for the first day, for the first one, I kind of like, it was, I think, yeah, because obviously you can't over prepare, but you can't under prepare. Like, you kind of have a set questions that you know that you can go through, but then like once, I think I was also really inspired by what the guests were saying. Like, they're like people I really admire, and then once they've said something, I'm like, oh my god, that's so insightful. I had that moment of like just absorbed into what they're saying and completely forgot that what I should say next. So there's definitely a little bit of that, but I think that comes with kind of like doing a little bit more of that, I guess. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad we managed to make it happen. Like, I was like a bit nervous about it, but and I guess, yeah, that came from what I was saying earlier about this lack of kind of like understanding that short filmmakers also desperately need no strings attached money support, kind of money that is just given to you as a gift, kind of like you can just take a risk, test it out, make a short film. If it doesn't work, it's fine. That type of, what do you call it, charitable just gift, rather than someone expecting you to make a return on it, because it's kind of quite impossible at the start. So that's why that's kind of the motivation behind kind of emailing your team to say, I've got this idea, shall we do something together? That was the motivation for doing it.
Had you done hosting before, or was this like the first time you'd done something like that?
Oh, good question. I've done things like kind of like at university, kind of just as a master of ceremony, on like kind of on an event to introduce kind of acts, but not really on an interview type hosting. So yeah, it's new to me. But I'm really glad I did it, and I am really glad kind of like your team provided kind of like quite a safe environment where like if mistakes were made, it's not the end of the world, like type of thing.
Were you surprised by how many people turned up to the first webinar?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think, yeah, no, definitely. I think I think because I think you guys managed the logistical side of things, which thank you so much. I wasn't really so when I produced a theatre show myself kind of back in 2020, and I was getting these daily sales report of like kind of from the venue of like it's computerized, like, by the way, so kind of like we've sold kind of 20 tickets today, and then we've got 20, like it's kind of like I kind of know. But then I think because you guys looked after that, and I also like kind of obviously we were all a bit busy. I didn't feel like I should bother every single day to ask how many people signed up. So yeah, that I just kind of I just left that I just trusted the process without asking kind of in the run up to it. And then I just like on the day I just asked how many people were coming, and then that was yeah, definitely a bit of a shock, but I'm really, really pleased to everyone who came. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think our audience massively appreciated it and massively enjoyed it. And by the way, guys, all 4 of the webinars that Natalie put on are available on the BFI's YouTube channel. I'll make sure to link them down below so you can watch them all. They're all available and they are excellent. So make sure you check them out. So also, I'm not sure how many people know this, but basically, when you approached us to put the webinars on, there was a moment where it looked like they weren't going to happen. And obviously, like, you and I were going backwards and forwards, trying to sort of work it out. But basically, the reason was it was meant to happen in October, and that was when the London Film Festival was on. And all of our resources, all of our sort of time and effort was going into that. And yeah, there was a moment where it looked like that wasn't going to happen. But the reason it did happen was because, in my opinion, it was because of your persistence and your determination and your sort of forthrightness that this has to happen, not just for you, but for it would be such a good thing for an audience to hear about raising finance for their film projects. And yeah, I don't think I've said this to you before, but massive credit for you for really pushing and sort of saying, no, this absolutely has to go ahead. I really want to, and I wanted to do it with you guys. And I know that the film and TV charity was sort of supporting you financially with it and stuff, but it was all sort of spearheaded by you. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I massively was impressed by just how you persevered through it and made sure it happened. And okay, it happened a month afterwards, but that also gave us the time to really plan it and approach those guests. I think you got more guests and different people that you want to get involved, and that was really great. And in the end, we were able to take our time to promote it properly. And the amount of guests, the amount of filmmakers that turned up to watch it was, I think, a fantastic end result of all your hard work.
Definitely also thanks to you guys for kind of helping with all the social media, and like Nilan was answering my emails at like 7 p.m, so he's like absolutely brilliant on this. I guess obviously, yes, that's all true, but obviously just to be a little bit more honest, it's also obviously the film and TV charity gave me a little bit of financial support to cover the access side of things. So I applied for a grant to cover things like, so as you can see, there were like BSL interpretation and that side of things. I guess, obviously, I do believe it was a really, really good project, but I mean, I don't mind people knowing that there is not I wouldn't say it's a selfish intention, but every producer really values, I think a good producer knows that they are accountable to the funder, like however big or small that this time was a very small amount of money, but every producer really kind of like cares about that account, or a good producer should care about accountability. So I kind of felt like I needed to just get this done, because I've said this to the charity who said, I told them I'm going to do it. I've put this forward in a proposal to them, so I need to get it done. I think there's a little bit of that, like obviously, absolutely, I really obviously wanted it to happen so everyone could see it, but just to give you a bit of honest thoughts inside my head, that was what I was thinking as well. But yeah, no.
Yeah, because like I was just like, I think that it was clear to me just how like important it was to you that this went ahead. So I just wanted to sort of get a sense of, why was it so important to you that you put these workshops on at this time? Like, why did it all came together to happen at this moment? And obviously it happened, and obviously the end result was great, but why was it so important for you that it had to happen like this?
It was in part inspired that I guess over kind of the course of the first half of the lockdown, I've met through networking events, because there was not much happening. I was also wanting to stay connected to the sector. How many filmmakers I've met felt that they needed to put in their own money to make their work, and like they needed to, I think, how many filmmakers had felt that applying to funding wasn't accessible to them, like the process was really, really daunting. And I think because there is, I think that back to kind of like what I said earlier, there is, I think, compared to its counterpart in theatre, there is a bit of lack of understanding from the wider sort of public that short film also needs your sort of like generous support. Yeah, filmmakers were all kind of thinking, I can only do it by putting in my own money, or getting all my friends to help out. Like I've spoken to a lot of people. I've also kind of like, there was a bit of time where I spoke to a few more early career filmmakers, kind of script writers, who kind of wanted to hear from a producer's perspective. I gave up my time to talk to people kind of on a one-to-one level after meeting them on several networking events. Yeah, I just felt quite strongly that obviously, yes, that does happen, that still happens, let's not hide it, but I really kind of wanted people to know there are more than just kind of like, there are other ways. If you're not from a privileged position that you can have spare cash to put to make a film, that doesn't mean you can't. And obviously there are structural problems that like there's still a process to access these things, but I think I wanted to kind of raise awareness of there are ways to apply to the local council. There are wonderful people like Alan, who we spoke to on the webinar, out there. You just need to find, obviously it's easier said than done, but I wanted to kind of send that message out that yes, it's not easy, but there are ways to do it. Yeah, that's why I wanted to do it, I think.
Well, it was a very honourable intention, and yeah, once again, thank you very much for persisting and making it happen. I want to ask you, you're part of Film Hub Southeast's producer programme.
Yes.
How's that all going, and sort of what does it involve? Because it sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so the program's actually now done. That was, I think, 3 days of kind of like a professional development program. So it was led by 3 wonderful people, Lauren Dunn, Sophie Reynolds, and Helen Simmons, who are the founders of the Producers Roundtable. They were there to kind of push for better pay, better conditions for producers. So they led it. It's really, really good. I've learned a lot from it. And it was really, really nice to have a moment of kind of like meeting other producers and know that I think a lot of the problems that I'm facing, for example, like there just isn't enough money within a project to pay myself. What do I do? Like things like that. We might not have the answers, but that other people are also facing the same. Currently, that I had a bit of a struggle where I've been offered some producing work, but it's only kind of like 1 day or half a day. It's so short notice, I can't arrange it from my day job to make it. And I've kind of like, even though it's a project I really, really wanted to do, and to know that other producers have faced exactly the same problems, that's really useful to know. Obviously, we also went through some more kind of the logistical detail of how do you make the transition from a short film producer into being a feature film, like kind of Helen really kindly gone through some legal documentation with us. That was really useful, but I think definitely it's a really great program, and thanks to all that put it together. Yeah, and it's also a safe space. We've now got kind of a nice WhatsApp group where we can rant about things. Kind of like, I think, yeah, I think in the earlier time, I mean, I'm not old, but like kind of when I was starting out, I always feel like people who do the same job as me are competitors. And because I think at the time I was I was applying for lots of jobs and like opportunities were scarce, so I kind of was quite defensive to people that are kind of quite like me, because I'm like, you're gonna be applying for the same thing as I am and we'll be competing, so I don't want to be your friend. I kind of had a bit of that attitude. Maybe some people out there also do. But I think as I kind of, I think in particular during this pandemic, I had so many problems of like cancellation. How do I deal with it? How do I manage my relationship with a crew if I need to tell them like, you don't have a job anymore? Like, I think what is there a better way to do things? I think this pandemic has really taught me this allyship, solidarity, and that group was fantastic. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad it went well, and thank you for your honesty as well. I think that that competitive sort of mindset is kind of instilled in people as soon as they get into this industry, because it kind of feels like every man for himself. There's only a finite amount of opportunities, and I think the more you get into it, the more you realize actually if we work together we can help each other, and it's going to be, you know, mutually beneficial, and you can actually also get good work done and do it in a way that's sustainable and enjoyable. You know, it doesn't have to be me versus you constantly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, not many people talk about that, so I massively appreciate you being honest about it. As a producer, there's going to be people that watch this that are looking for their own producer, for their own projects. Is getting involved in other people's projects something that you're actually looking to do? And if so, what kind of stuff are you looking to get involved in? What level, and how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think, just to be completely honest, I think the producer and artist, in this sense, I refer it to as a writer director. It's a bit like dating. It takes more than just kind of like, obviously obviously beyond what's on paper, whether your script is good or not, and etc. Beyond that, I think it has to be somebody I get on with, someone I can kind of like scream at midnight trying to submit a funding application, but my computer crash, I can just scream to the phone, and once I've done that, open a bottle of champagne with it. I think because it's such hard work, like kind of like being able to get on is actually quite important. And I think it's because projects take so long to make, as we mentioned, even short films. I think I'm someone who needs like quite a lot of time to assess whether that project is right for me, and kind of like whether I think usually if someone sends me something or I have a conversation with someone, my approach is that I will be honest with them as well. I'm going to put this on the back burner for 2 weeks at least, or maybe longer. And if 2 weeks later I'm still kind of, and I'll get on back with kind of like my day-to-day life. I was like, I need to do that. I need to make that happen. Then that's right for me. If 2 weeks later I've kind of like forgotten about that, then I guess like that means that it might not be as important to me as it should be. I think so. And I think, just to be a bit more honest, that's how I work. I don't know how about other producers, but I am currently pretty much at capacity because of work, but I'm obviously very happy to have general chats, and if I could help with kind of like, even if it's not me signposting to other resources.
I'll put Natalie's details down in the description, so yeah, feel free to get in touch with Natalie to have a general chat. And maybe once your slate has cleared up, you might be look out for new projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Cool. Natalie, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this chat. I think we've spoken about some really important issues and areas of film and TV fundraising, which is something, again, we don't really get the chance to talk about. So yeah, it's been really great to be able to do that. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment down below, let me know what you think. If you've got any questions for Natalie, leave it in the comments below, and I could speak to her about that and put the answers further down in the comments as well. And yeah, if you've liked this video, if you've liked the previous interviews that I've done, subscribe to the channel. I've got loads more interviews with some really fantastic guests coming up, so make sure you check that out. So yeah, Natalie, thank you again. And guys, I'll see you next time.